Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. D. Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Podcast. I'm D. Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
And today's an episode of the two Sophies. Mm-hmm. We have our friend Sophie Chiche, the woman who has done a lot of things in her life, but in her most recent iteration, started a company called Shape House that we both go to.
We love it. I can't wait to get back there. I'm almost over this pregnancy. Hopefully by the time this comes out, we have a baby girl in our lives. But yeah, Sophie is amazing. We love Shape House, huge fans. It's infrared.
Yep.
And it's not a sauna. It's an infrared kind of like sleeping bag that you climb into. It's the most amazing. We didn't even really get into like what it's like.
We literally did not talk about Shape House. I think we talked about sweating a little bit.
Sweating, yeah, a little bit. But this place, if you live in LA or New York.
And they're coming all over, I think.
Yeah, hopefully. But for sure, LA and New York. You can go get a session. It's an hour long and you get to totally disconnect from reality. Climb in, you have sweatpants and a sweatshirt and socks on.
That they give you.
That they provide. You climb into a little sleeping bag that looks like a spacesuit. Gets zipped up, tucked in, handed a remote to play with Netflix or HBO.
By like a valet. I feel like the whole time you're taken care of, they just walk you in. It's so beautiful.
They give you alkaline water to sip on. You're totally off the grid, no phones, and you just get to relax. And sometimes I zone out. Sometimes I just like kind of close my eyes. I don't necessarily sleep because you get really warm, but it's so cozy, like a cocoon. I now literally
do this twice a week. And Sophie promised us that we're going to get a code for all y'all listening right now.
Yeah, look in the show notes. They're going to give, I don't remember how many, but a good handful of you guys are going to get a free session.
Yeah. I think they set up to like the first 50 people that
50.
respond.
Yeah, 50.
So there's a couple of thousand of you listening. Get in there quick and get this thing if you're in LA or New York. It's amazing. I do it twice a week now. Sophie can't wait to get back into it. Mm-hmm. And this is a little promotional thing that literally they didn't sponsor at all, but we love. That's how much we love Shape House. It's really, really great. But Sophie has been through her own transformation. That's how she actually found the benefits of this constant sweating element to her life. So she said, I think on the episode, she said she did it for like 200 days straight or something. But really, really good, lost a lot of weight, got herself much, much healthier, etc. And, you know, to me, this conversation really brought up a theme of transformation. Just, we all go through these periods in our lives that we feel stuck, plateaued, maybe even worse than stuck, right? Like we're down, we're at the worst state we've been in a while. And it can feel like, oh my God, I'm never going to leave this place. And what I love about Sophie's story is the ability to turn that into what is now this incredible success, but all really coming from pain, from a point of being really discontent with her own life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she's so impressive, so inspiring. And I can't wait for you to hear her story. It's just so beautiful. She lost hundreds of pounds.
Yeah. I think like
150 or something. I guess it's not hundreds, but a lot of weight. And more importantly, she healed herself. Yep. That's the most important thing. And, you know, it's not just about the physical weight. There's an internal, and we talked about this too, just the internal like root of the issue, like the reason that you're eating all that food, the reason you find yourself at midnight standing in front of the fridge eating, although you're not hungry, or find yourself smoking that joint again, or find yourself shopping again, even though you don't need that thing. Like those addictions are not the root problem. That's not what the problem is. There's something much deeper. And she was able to heal herself from all of that. And she's so beautiful. She's such a beautiful soul.
Totally. And, you know, again, on this transformation theme, whether it's with your philosophy babes and the women who join the tribe that is philosophy to make themselves better. Weight, skin, health issues, self-confidence, whatever it is, there's these underlying pieces that I think come out a lot in the people who follow you in terms of, oh, wait, I can believe in myself, right? I can become the person that I've always wanted to be.
Absolutely. But you have to handle the difficult stuff first, and the real stuff, the dirty stuff, and the things that we don't really always want to look at first, and then all the other things. You start to glow from within.
Yeah, and it's the same exact thing with the Ignited recovery people that I see, where everybody comes in and they say, I'm drinking too much, or I'm watching too much porn, or whatever it is that is wrong with them in the moment. And I go, cool, I'm really happy you want to take care of that. Let's just take a moment and breathe deep and pay attention to what comes up as soon as we handle it. Because I can handle that for you quickly, but a world of hurt is going to come in from under it. And let's just be ready for it and prepared. And so it was really beautiful to see that in her. And I know by the time this comes out, we will have already held our first couples workshop on the heels of that recent episode that was, I'll tell you, I still go through transformations, right? When we recorded that really in-depth conversation, the going deep conversation about our story, I still get triggered. I still get anxious. I still get shamed. You know that I was asking you for a week or two beforehand, like, are we really ready to fully expose who we are? And each one of those occurrences is an opportunity to retransform.
Absolutely.
An opportunity to uncover all these things that you're hiding from, that maybe you're aware of, but you're hiding from other people, whatever. We all have these nooks and crannies in our personalities that we're just not being fully transparent to other people around.
Yeah, and I feel like my greatest growth opportunities in life have come from being exposed and being vulnerable, even if it's painful. Like, I'm definitely in the public eye, and I definitely go out of my way to be super vulnerable and honest, because it helps me to be the best version of who I am. So this podcast that we recorded a while ago, that going deep episode telling our story, like, that was so important to me for us to co-share that experience, because we tried in the beginning, and it's funny. We tried last summer in Israel, we tried telling our story, and we weren't ready.
No, we weren't. We
weren't ready to tell it in that way. We weren't ready personally. And then a year later now, we told it, and it wasn't easy for either of us. It was definitely like anxiety ridden.
And we went a lot deeper. When we recorded the first time, it was this like
we weren't ready.
Surface level of it that that was as deep as we were willing to get.
Exactly. And that's as deep as we could see it at that point in time. Our lens was just different. And, and I just felt like the world was ready to receive this. I could feel the pulse of it. And we're releasing it this week. It'll be after this one is released. But I'm getting multiple direct messages and emails like, where do I find that story? So it's definitely, I'm interested to see what happens with it. And even if we only help one couple or one person and give them hope, that's all I care about.
Yeah. And, again, the whole reason for doing the Ignited podcast was to be vulnerable. But that's easy to do on the things that you don't feel are that painful.
Exactly.
When you come up against your pain point is the real test. And this isn't our tip for the week, because we're going to get into our tip in a moment. But I think that is a good general tip for people in life. We have learned over and over that when you hit something painful, turn around and find another way. What we found is, at least in our lives, that's like your call to arms. Those are the moments where, do you show up for that? And do you figure out why it's painful and why your best instinct is to run away? Or do you just give into that impulse? And if you give into the impulse, by the way, I'm not judging you. I totally get it. I've done it for many, many years in my life. But I'm just letting you know that if you don't run, and if you sit there with it for a moment and you figure out what's happening and who can I rely on for support through this, and can I see the other side? Can I talk to somebody about this so I can understand what's happening to me? Every single time you make it past one of those bridges, an entirely new area of life opens up to you.
And it's just a growth edge. It's a growth opportunity, and it's a growth edge. And they're not supposed to be comfortable. It's like when you're in yoga class and you're in the hardest pose. So say that's crow for you, or maybe that's like half moon pose, and you're standing there and you're uncomfortable and you want to leave the pose, and there's another 10 seconds you have to hold, and all you want to do is drop and go into child's pose. Sometimes that's the right thing for you to do. But most of the time, that's when you need to stick to it, get through the uncomfortability. And then the next time that you revisit that pose, it's not so hard. Like you were saying on your runs, like you've been running for 2 weeks now in our neighborhood. That first day or two was really rough.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I cut it short that day.
Yeah. And then now you can just do it with ease and grace, and it's nothing. Our bodies, our minds, our hearts, our souls, we get used to this stuff. And
absolutely.
It's time to retrain ourselves to confront the things that feel uncomfortable, whether it's that yoga pose. It's everything in life. It's everything from the minute you wake up in the morning to the minute you go to sleep. It's when you go on that run. It's not taking the shortcuts.
Yeah.
It's when you're having a conversation with your mom,
absolutely.
Not weaseling out of it and being like, I got to go, because you don't want to deal with the confrontation.
Yeah. I was more tired waking up at 6:30 and kind of snapping to by 7 to wake you guys up for school and everything than I am now when I wake up at 6, and by 6:30, I'm already more awake than I was at 7 a.m. And those are these things you kind of have to do
exactly
in order to get the change.
Yeah.
That's the only way for that to work out in life.
Exactly.
And so our relationship tip for this week actually comes from a quote that Sophie wants to pull up for us. And it has to do with these challenges. It has to do with, how do you deal with a lover? How do you deal with a partner who is, maybe challenging in the moment? We get a lot of these questions from you of what happens when my partner and I are not exactly in sync. How do we handle that sort of a situation?
It's funny. I pull out quotes all the time from the internet, from Pinterest, from Instagram. And I found this old quote in my phone saved under inspiration from January 2016. And it's funny how these things just resonate. It's so good to save them in the moment, because they resonate for a lifetime sometimes. Or maybe not. Maybe it's just for that moment. But this one definitely still resonates. So it says, a lover doesn't discourage your growth. A lover says, I see who you are today. I cannot wait to see who you become tomorrow.
Yeah. And look, if I can be honest to everybody listening right now, that took us a little while. I was I'm still older than you are.
I think it depends on the context, because I think in a lot of ways you did encourage my growth in many, many ways. It just depends on, of course, when it comes to every single category in your life, no one's perfect. And
that's good to hear.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's part of why I fell in love with you, is because you challenged certain parts to my personality and encouraged me to step into the greatest potential of who I was supposed to be and wanting to be. And I think I did the same for you, but there was a lot of growth opportunity there too.
Yeah. And again, we met when we were both relatively young in the grand scheme of things. And so sometimes you don't know what these things even are. But when I hear this quote, one of the first things I think is, how can I encourage my partner?
Exactly. How can I encourage my partner to be a more whole part of who they are and represent themselves in the best possible light, and see them as this growing potential? Like, you always want to be better. You always want to surround yourself with people who want you to be the best version of yourself, and especially your partner, and especially the people that are closest to you in your life. You want your closest inner circle to want you to be the best version of you and to keep growing.
Yeah, and I think anybody listening to this right now, I can guarantee there are people listening who go like, oh crap, I don't really do this for my partner as much as I can. And I don't think a lot of these tips, when I listen to them, they're habits. There are things you get to build into your life. You don't have to have all this stuff down already. It's not like a judgment, like a checkbox. Oh, wait, my partner doesn't do this for me. I need to leave the relationship. But rather, this is something you need to cultivate. This is something you need to pay attention to. Don't start judging your partner on whether they're doing it for you or not yet. But to say to yourself, in what ways am I encouraging my partner to be their best self?
To grow.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, if we can all take this into our lives in general, even outside of our romantic partnerships, we will have a much, much happier and better world.
Absolutely.
But, for the context of this, start applying this in your life with your relationship. And you will see that all of a sudden, your partner becomes a better person because you pull that out of them.
Absolutely. And if you're not in a relationship, which many of you are not just in a relationship listening to this, we just share this relationship advice because we're in a partnership, but this is applicable to your best girlfriend. This is applicable to your closest relationships in your life, because if you and your best friend are calling each other on, I don't see you owning this, or I don't see you pushing yourself to your edge in this. I mean, that's what your closest friends are there for.
Yes, absolutely. So with that, wait 5 seconds. Let Sophie tell you about her amazing company before we go talk to the other Sophie about the incredible transformations that she has. And think about this tip as you're listening to this person go through and understand the ups and downs that they've had. And just imagine being there like that with a partner who is right there holding your hand throughout these incredible transformations. It's really, really magical. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you on the flip side.
Thanks for listening, y'all.
This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fix all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Ignited podcast. This is the interview section of our episode, and I'm really, really excited to have what's like an old friend now. I feel like a lot of times what I love about this podcast is we get to meet new people. This is going to be a really cool, long conversation with somebody I've known for a while.
I like
so that's
that.
Awesome.
Like a dear friend. I like that.
Yeah. So we've got Sophie Chiche with us today from Shape House. You're not from Shape House.
Well,
I mean, I guess you spent a lot
the
of time
founder
there.
of Shape
Yeah.
House. I did
Yes.
something.
There you go. The
Somewhat
founder.
related.
I like that better. The founder, not from Shape House. You're the founder
from
of Shape
Paris.
House. You are from Paris. Well,
Kelly.
what I don't even know if Sophie knows is my Sophie. This is going to be confusing for the rest of you listening today. We got two Sophies in the house.
Yours should be Sophie 1, and I should be Sophie 2.
We can do that. But
Kind of you.
But the way you even got to Shape House is a circumvented sort of roundabout way. So I think that would be a really good part of the discussion. I met you because of Shape House, but then we would literally I don't know if you know this, Sophie. I would go to do a sweat. We'll talk about what Shape House is in a minute. I would go to do a sweat, and then Sophie and I would just sit and talk for like an hour and a half outside of their office on Larchmont. We just sit around and talk about Paris and weight loss,
Being from somewhere else.
And relationships and everything.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming we'll talk about sweating at some point. That'll probably come up.
It would be unusual if it didn't, although it would be.
I might sweat a little in the middle of this conversation. No, not at all. But it's so good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I want to let you start with telling the story of how you got here to this moment in whatever way that translates for you.
That is a big question.
Yeah.
I think the piece you're referring to is the fact that I have lost about 200 pounds. I used to be 350, but it's really where the needle kind of hit at the time, the scales were not, they were analog, you could see the needle and it hit at 350. So it could have been a little more, but it was definitely the clue that I I needed to stop doing whatever I was doing and do something different. And so the journey started way before Shape House. I met Shape House maybe 60, 70 pounds ago. So I had already lost a good amount, but it was a smart way to do it. There was a way so Shape House is a place. There is 4 in LA, 2 in New York, 1 in East Hamptons, about to be 2 more in New York. We're opening them about every month and a half right now.
That's awesome.
It's like being pregnant, but really fast.
I like that. That's my kind of pregnancy.
Sophie would like to be pregnant really fast.
That's it really has. And now we're doing 3 houses almost at the same time, which means like being pregnant with triplets, kind of, but really quick.
Separated.
Yes, it's a little in different cities, but it's what's exciting with it. So what we do is we help people sweat. We lay people down in this technology with these beds that are made of this ceramic plates, which create an experience where you heat up your body. Your own body gets heated up from the inside. Your face is not in it, which makes it super comfortable. So people come and do it. And you lay there, and 55 minutes later, after a good TV show, typically, you are drenched like you fell in a pool. And so people are having it's a new way to take care of yourself. It's in the protocol of working out, and the protocol of going to get a massage, and the protocol even to go speak with someone about your more emotional, more psychological issues. It kind of does all that. Like in 1 hour, you'll shift emotionally, physically, you'll burn calories, your skin will feel better, you'll sleep better that night, which to me was a critical piece of the puzzle. Like I've really, not that long ago, and Ariana Huffington has been on the bender with us for a long time, but sleeping makes a huge difference. And people who don't sleep, I mean, that's how you drive someone crazy. You you interrupt their sleep on a regular basis. That's why parents, sorry, Sophie, I'm sure you know already, but for a while you'll be interrupted in your sleep, and that really makes people go slightly crazy. And,
absolutely.
And sweating allows you to sleep better, so the next day you feel better, so you can make better choices with your food, and you like your job better because you're not as stressed out. And it has this really beautiful holistic care of yourself that I really like.
That's awesome. So you discovered it through your own journey.
Yes.
How what was that discovery like?
Also, how did you find it? Because there was no Shape House then.
There is no Shape House. Shape House was born like, how do we make babies? That's a really good question. Not so much the how, but how does it actually work to come together? It was, here I can probably say the most intimately. It feels very much like it was not a vision, but maybe a download. Like it was, I knew the technology. I had broken my arm in France, and the technology there was used to help the bone fuse back after a fracture. So I knew the nurses in my environment when I was a kid, that was talked about that infrared was really good. We know that infrared is good for you. I did not invent that part. But what came to me was more of what kind of experience I wanted to create for people, what kind of comfort, what kind of level of care from the people who, even if they're just wrapping you in a bed and press a button, it can, like I really convey to them that moment can change people's life and certainly day.
Yeah, so that's something actually you and I talked a lot about, right? Because in the old treatment center that I used to run, you and I talked about the experience that people have when they're getting the help from you, because you can be giving the world's best help ever, but if you're giving it like in the middle of a crowded highway with people driving by making noise all the time and screaming profanities out the window at you, not that great. And it's true that the technology exists, but one of the great things about Shape House is that people come and they love the experience. Like from the moment they come in, Sophie and I go together, you talked about like a TV show. It's like this hour you take for yourself. And there are these people that just take care of you the whole time.
Yeah.
Kind of like what we all want at home.
I mean, hopefully we have that at home. But part of what we look for when we hire people has to do with someone saying, I really wanted to be a nurse, or I had 6 little sisters and I took care of them. Like this notion that are very nurturing, that are very naturally, because you can't effort yourself to be a caring person for 8 hours. That is, you just,
you either are or you aren't.
You are or you're not. And for some people, it feeds them. Like the more nurturing they are, the more nurtured they feel. And so it makes a beautiful day for them. Like I used to be a consultant, and there was always this idea that companies wanted to like do something for their community and teach something to their clients or whatever, and they were treating each other really poorly. And there was always this idea of like, you have nothing to teach to anyone if you don't nurture it within your own company, within your own people. And it's interesting. I've always been asked, like, how do you show people that you care so much? And it's always been like, I actually do care that much. It's not
it trickles out from you, and then the people that you hire, you can feel that or not feel that from
exactly
them. And you can tell their true colors come through.
Yes,
if they're that sort of a person.
Yes,
like Adi's not a nurturing person. That's okay. Most men actually aren't. He's just not. He's not a nurturing person. I can say that absolutely. I am a nurturing person. I get fed by being loving. I get fed. Like, I feel dead if I go all day without nurturing other people.
Wow.
And it's, I feel more alive the more that I nurture.
Yeah.
And Adi, 100%.
Would you agree with that, Adi?
Is not
that I'm doing the interview, but I'm curious.
Your interview time.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. My job is to help other people. But I think what Sophie's talking about is I'm not warmly nurturing. Like, I'm not one of those people who, I don't go in for a hug. I will sit with you for 4 hours and to figure out how to make your life better. But I'm not the person who, my first inclination is not to hug. And actually, I was going to ask, I think, again, like, nurturing can take on so many different values, right? Like, literally what I just did for the last 2 hours was talk to people to help make their day better.
I would say that's very nurturing, just not in a maternal...
Not in the way that, like, if you're working at Shape House, that you want people to be feeling... Because you don't really want to get into an hour discussion about their addiction.
Well, so actually, that brings up an important question for me. This is what I love about this podcast. Like, I never know where things are going to go. You said you just know. There are people listening right now who find themselves having a hard time knowing who's going to nurture them or who's going to take care of them or who's going to provide the sort of interaction and the sort of intimacy that they want, whether that's in a romantic relationship or with friends. And they find that they misjudge that all the time. I think it's really useful to learn tips. I still wish to this day that I just actually need to ask you for it, but like that I could steal your Trello training tips. We could talk about that at some other point in time. But there's got to be a way that you use, because you don't do all the hiring now.
No.
So maybe you were good at knowing what it would be initially when you hired for the first place, but now you've had to come up with actual like characteristics. And you already said some, you gave us some of them, right? Like if you wanted to be a nurse or you grew up around a lot of younger kids, what are some of the ways that you've now learned you can tell whether somebody else will be able to be nurturing long-term in that warm, maternal sort of way?
I mean, I may surprise you, but really, truly, honestly, I don't know. I'm actually often surprised both ways. Like, we'll hire someone and I meet them soon after they've been hired. That's been a promise I've made to myself, that I will not be the kind of leader in my organization that will, run into someone and not know who they are. It's happened a little bit because sometimes they hire people when I'm traveling, but we've hired people thinking they were going to be such a fit and such a good blend with us and blah, 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 that turned out to be completely not. And then we hire people because we really need a body to help us and we're missing someone in staff immediately, and we'll hire them. They turn out to be the best ones. It's like what happens, I think, in the kind of culture that we've created is the culture becomes its own filter. So if you are a gossipy, unkind, whatever person who knows how to pretend really well in an interview, that won't last very long, because in the kitchen, someone will be very quickly like, you don't fit here. It's like, you've been gossiping about this chick you don't even know for like 20 minutes, and they'll stop that and they'll interrupt that, and as we were discussing a little bit, Sophie and I, earlier before you came here, it's like sometimes it's an apple. It's like an apple in a basket of apples. It doesn't take much for your culture to shift, and it works both ways. Sometimes when we have a house that doesn't feel very happy, whatever that means, like somehow something's not flowing, and you can tell because people are either not wanting to keep their jobs or they become difficult to, or it's something's like
off.
The sound of it is not very harmonious, and it's like we'll shift it the same way. We'll put someone in there that we know is like a sunshine, an uplifter type of person, and all of a sudden 10, 20 people that work in that store will be uplifted and will shift, and it's beautiful that it works both ways. Like, it's not that hard to make it go down, but it's also not that hard. And I experienced that, actually, to make a bizarre parallel, which I'm going to follow your guidance of just going with the flow here. But I experienced that with my body too. Like when I was 350 pounds, which, if you imagine, it's like both of you and some more in one body. Like my bones, if you think of it, my bones are your bones. Like we have a similar structure, could be taller, a little bit thicker maybe, but it's pretty much the same structure. To think that my poor legs, my poor feet, like all of that were carrying all this weight and the resilience.
The stress that it puts on you.
The stress on everything, my whole system. And to think that now I'm super healthy. And not only that, but I was doing a Pilates class a few days ago, and this woman was like, I have never seen, even in a man, someone with as much strength in their legs. And I was thinking, why would I have strength in my legs? Like, I've never really, why? I was carrying around 350 pounds for all these years. And it's like my muscles are just so, warriors.
Oh, totally. And there's so many beautiful parallels, I think, to it, right? The idea that when you're surrounded by toxicity, you don't know necessarily the tiny little improvement because there's so much bad that's happening. So it takes, sometimes it can take, not always, but sometimes it can take humongous change.
Yes.
Like a large shift that can happen in a moment or over time, but a large shift to be able to even start tuning in to that healthier place. But once you're there, it's now kind of your responsibility to continuously pay attention to anything that is throwing you off.
Yes.
Because you've already put all the fucking work into getting so much better.
Yes.
So you know what shitty feels like, and now you know what good feels like.
And also in my case, shitty went far. It wasn't a little bit shitty. Like 350 pounds is really a lot of sick, a lot of unwell, a lot of...
It happens gradually, right? It happens like another little bit, another little bit, another little bit. And so I say this to people all the time. Again, this is something that just came up on the call right before this was... I don't believe there's anything too extreme to overcome.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of work you don't want to do because it might be uncomfortable and all that other stuff. But you can do it. You need to understand the tools. Like, so, shape house and sweating and some of that was part of the tools. It sounds like before you discovered or before you started that, you had other tools in place. But it's almost like an ongoing discovery, and you have to know enough in yourself to just not give up and to just go, I'm going to keep trying things. And as soon as one clicks, I'm going to go, okay, cool, that's in my toolbox. And then I'm going to keep finding more. And then eventually I'll have my kit. And now I don't see you as somebody who struggles with her weight. I don't know what the internal experience is like, but that's not how I see you at all.
No, but it's like when you raise your children, I'm sure the children topic comes in this podcast often. And I remember what you just said. In my head, I was thinking, well, that fits really well. I raised myself as I would have a child. I've retaught myself to eat differently. I've taught myself to sleep differently. I've taught myself...
Reprogramming.
You
had to reprogram yourself.
Very much so. Yeah. And it's like especially when you have such a large journey to come back to yourself, there's plenty of ways that you can experiment. It's not, as Adi was saying, it's not like all of a sudden tonight I've solved my problem. It's like, not that long ago, maybe in the past couple of years, I've had moments of like, wow, I'm actually there. Not there, but I'm in a there that's enough of a there. Like now, I went off my crazy diet and I had 2 crackers. It was just like, I'm never that far. I don't touch coffee. I don't do sugar. It's like I have a really super, super healthy baseline. And now what makes me really sick is a couple of crackers or because I don't do gluten. Yeah. When I do, it's like it feels very quickly really bad. And now my experience of feeling well, which is very good bridge towards back to sweating, when people ask me like, what am I going to feel if I sweat regularly? Or now I come once a week, what happens if I come twice a week or what have you? There is something about living a life where your body is detoxed, and God knows, I'm sure you know more than me about that. But this idea that your body functions well, like it just functions optimally, like your car. Your car runs well because you put gas. You don't put, bananas in your tank.
I've tried that once. It does not work well.
It really does not work. Like sugar in your tank would not work, and yet we treat our bodies not as well as we treat our cars. It's missing water. It's like we don't do anything about it. It's missing sleep. We just do coffee. Now it's missing, relaxation. So we do wine. It's like, what are we doing? Like, we can't go buy another body. Not in this life anyway. So there's something about realizing late in life, which is cool because now I'm 50 and I should be aging. But now that I've understood this whole thing, I'm like disaging or reversing, as opposed to I would have been like all healthy my whole life. And now I'm like losing my youth. It's like, no, I didn't have a youth. I was 350 pounds walking around,
Yeah.
So in some ways I have the vitality. Like I see my friends that are 50 that were youngy, cutie, not dealing with weight kind of people. And they're now struggling with like, whoa, I don't look the way I used to. And it's like, yay, yay for me,
So they didn't need to put the tools in place. They sort of had, it just worked out for them.
Yeah.
And now it's a struggle.
I mean, mine was like I had to work. I had to do my work. I had to understand the whys. I had to sit there courageously. My very first, like when people ask me like where the weight journey really shifted, I remember to this day, it was probably 10 years ago. Oh, wow, pretty much 10 years ago, exactly. I went, it was 2:00 in the morning, hard day, sad, break up, whatever. Go to my fridge, start eating food. But before I grabbed Nutella, was in the fridge. Nutella was probably 200 in the 350 pounds. Like it was really my thing, like my go-to for nurturing, growing up. And I opened my fridge and there's the Nutella and I'm about to grab it. And I pull a chair in the fridge, like that beautiful light in a fridge, right? Like the sickly thing in your face. And yeah, exactly. And I literally said to myself, you can eat the Nutella, like you can, but can we first feel what's going on right now? Can we just feel these feelings for a minute? And if you can, for a few minutes, feel these feelings, you can have all the Nutella and the mayonnaise, which I used to match the two of them together, which now makes me literally want to vomit. But, and I did. I felt my feelings and I sat there and it was probably because of the backup of all these years of not feeling my feelings. It was a difficult, it actually lasted half an hour. I never closed the fridge. I just sat there, now cold, with this really horrible light. And I just felt the loneliness, the desperate, the scared, the just lonely, really difficult feeling. And I finished that and I said, do you want Nutella? And my body was like, no, I'm done. And I pretty much never ate Nutella after that. Once I lost a cat and it was really sad and I was like, I don't know how to feel this damn thing. I'm just going to eat Nutella. And I did for 3 days, made me sick like a dog or a cat. And I was just like, I'm aware that I'm doing it to not feel the sadness right now. So it's a strategy.
Yeah.
Not now
it's
I'm
another tool.
It's just another tool. And it was very much like, we have 3 days. Just do 3 days. Then for 3 days, you stop doing it and then you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And it worked. It helped. But it was a choice. It wasn't unconscious, know.
For people who are listening, there's a name for this. It's called urge surfing. Mm-hmm. And it's this idea that you learn to get better at recognizing the welling up of feelings, like the wave of feelings. That's why it's called urge surfing.
Yes.
You feel the wave, and what we've learned to do is break them. Like we've learned to find some ways to just like ignore that they're happening.
Yes.
Urge surfing is the idea of just give yourself a moment to feel it.
Yeah.
And part of what you see is they gradually go away.
Yes.
They feel so intense, like a wave. They feel so intense at first, but then you just ride them for a minute.
I think for me, there was also a fear that I couldn't. Like for some reason, I was raised by people who didn't feel their feelings. So I assumed we shouldn't or couldn't or don't know how. And
you didn't have practice.
And I didn't have practice. And I really did think that feeling my feelings would be a dangerous thing. Like literally, like it could kill me. I mean, 350 pounds could kill me faster, probably. So at some point, it became a strategic choice to switch.
Oh my God, I just found a really cool parallel. Follow me with this, and I'm bringing it back to sweating here. It's really interesting. We learned so often, and for me, it was drugs and alcohol, and then it was sexual acting out and all this stuff. But we learn to bring stuff in to fill us, right? To the void, right? And so for you was food in a very, sugar, fat, like all those things to literally fill you up. For me, it was drugs and things to just fill me up, but kind of block out my mind. And we keep trying to do more to take the stuff in to take us. And now, sweating, detoxing, whatever it is you want to call it, it's actually about the purification. It's about
emptying,
bringing stuff out and getting rid of the unhelpful stuff. That is the point of sweating, right? At its core, it's about temperature regulation and it's about detoxing.
Yeah.
Like your body gets rid of toxins and your body regulates its temperature.
Yeah. In my yoga classes, you can just tell, you can feel when people are in their heads.
Yes.
People are normally in their heads, but you can also feel it, like as a teacher, as someone who's conscious. When you walk around the room and people are just kind of like half moving through it, they're not really in their bodies. And I just kind of try and bring them back by just saying like, what kind of thoughts are you thinking? Mm-hmm. What are those thoughts? Mm-hmm. Are they toxic? Are they loving? Mm-hmm. If you wouldn't say this to your child, if you wouldn't say this to your very best friend, why are you talking to yourself that way?
Yeah.
And it's the same idea. Just like, though everything starts with your thoughts, with your energy within yourself, and then it goes out from there.
Yeah. I remember when I was in more the opposite of self-loving, which I will not even name, but just the opposite of it, I would find a loving thought to be disturbing because all of it was such noise of unkind, critics in my head. And now it's virtually the opposite. Like when a thought comes to me that's like, oh, that was a little lazy, it's kind of like, no, it really wasn't. You had a really hard day and and I like walk myself through. It's not like I don't accomplish tons. So somehow that word now is what shocks me. Like an unkind thought is what now gets me.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. It just happened to me yesterday. So daylight savings just happened, and I woke up yesterday and I was like in a funk all day. Couldn't really think clearly. It's like lethargic. I was a little depressed, and I'm not used to being in that state, right? And it's actually funny because I used to say that I lean towards depression. That's kind of where I, some people lean towards like manic and anxious. I lean towards depression more, but it hadn't happened to me in a while, so I wasn't used to it, and I was complaining about it all day. And Sophie at some point kind of told me, you can have a day off. Like you can have a day of turning your head off. And not only did that idea not cross my mind, but I was judging myself for not showing up the way that I wanted to. And again, I'm sure that's something that a lot of people can relate to, is having that gentle awareness for yourself to just say, you know what, you're not feeling your best. So this is the day to actually take care of yourself. Yes. This is not a day to be mad at yourself. This is
a really nice day to be kind.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And self-care is something we don't teach here.
That is one of the reasons I've really grown. I mean, I've loved Shape House from its inception, but I've really grown to have even more of almost gratitude, I guess, appreciation for that I get to wake up every morning, that my life is devoted to a service, an experience that shifts people's lives and makes people happy and really contribute in really large ways. And now we have virtually thousands of people a month doing it, and to be able to go to bed and say, someone somewhere today is going to go home and not get that drink and not be that upset at their kid, or make that choice to write a book or do something different with their lives or whatever, that I get to be so directly involved with that is I have no words to what a meaningful life that is.
And isn't it beautiful, just because I'm on the side of helping people heal through food, and it's so beautiful to just be able to offer this service and allow it to just become whatever it becomes. Yes. So without, people will be like, what are the results going to be like? And I can talk about that, like what may happen. Yeah. But the beauty is the magic of like the profound experience of the healing journey, and that it's different for everyone.
It really
for
is.
Someone that needs to lose a lot of weight, that's going to be super profound for them if they've been struggling for so long to lose that weight, whether they're sweating or going on a cleanse. If they, if they go to a sweat and their sleep has been off and they've been an insomniac for years, like you can't even begin to tell someone what that's going to feel like to have their life back.
Exactly. I actually do tell them when they ask me. I often will return the question with, what's going on with you? Because if it's your sleep, it will do something different than if it's your hormones, than if it's this and that and the other. But in essence, I do know that getting rid of toxins will help your body. Yeah. Like with you
will feel lighter.
Like you put the food in the body and it's good food and it's like, healthy food, that it's going to help better than food. It's like, it's so commonsensical.
Absolutely.
I love that. The simplicity of it is really beautiful.
But also just the profound effects that are so far beyond what you can expect. So from individual to individual, like there's already like a list of 25 things that it will automatically do for anyone.
Yes.
But then beyond that is that it can actually transform your life.
I love that you're seeing that. Most people don't have some people do. And when they do, it has this magical, that's why I quit everything else I was doing, because I saw I was a therapist, I was doing all these different things, and it's like, there's nothing I can do that in 55 minutes, without even me being there, or really anyone being there, can bring so much goodness, and also so many at a time. It's like we have stores everywhere. We're going to have stores even more everywhere, that it's just like somehow without even, like I can go to sleep and people are, getting better from being in that house.
For me, for the sweats, it's, as a mom and as a business owner, I'm always on. Yeah. So even when I like put my phone away and I'm like, okay, I'm on kid mode now, then I'm 100% on kid mode. Yeah. And that means,
which is still not you.
Still work, right? Still working somewhere.
It's just nonstop. It's like, okay, so now we're organizing the playroom, and now we're doing this, and now we're doing this, now we're cleaning out the bookshelf, and now we're getting rid of this stuff, and it just never stops.
Yeah.
So when I'm laying on the beds at Shape House and just being able, like, literally my arms are inside a bag.
Tucked in.
I am not allowed to be on my phone, and I don't want it near me.
Yeah.
I want to have that hour to myself to just zone out. I usually watch TED Talks, but it's still not on my phone, not taking care of somebody else, not micromanaging my babysitters or my husband or the home or my assistant or my children. It's just being present with myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes I tune in and out, and kind of like the 11-minute TED Talk ends, and then I just kind of lay there for just like 10 minutes, and it's so quiet.
And there's something about how it happened recently for me, which is interesting, because when I first opened Shape House, I sweated 200 times in a row. A little bit in the spirit of like if someone's...
In a row is like every day?
Every day. I skipped
200
like
days,
one day, 200 days in a row, And I had this moment of like, if I'm going to devote my life to it, and if someone is going to get injured, it should be me. A little bit.
Just to test it.
Just to test it a little bit. But I remember, so meaning I've done a lot of sweats. And I remember recently, maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, I was laying there and I actually felt my blood. I felt my blood like running through my legs, and I could track where my blood was. And I was like, the awareness of especially having been where I was, where really my body at 350 pounds, it's basically a chariot for my head. It's like I experienced my life as this big body.
I don't think I've ever heard that description before.
It's like a vehicle. Like my body was carrying my head. That's
I'm hearing
all it
like
was.
dun, 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 in the background.
Well, I couldn't do that because it was too fast. But this idea that I was really so unconscious of my body, that something happened close to my mouth and then something happens out of my body somewhere, and that's pretty much all I knew. To now feel my body running through my veins, it's just such a blessing of self-awareness.
Absolutely. And yes, I'm going to start sweating again. It's been so long.
Maybe that's why I'm here, to get you back on.
I'm coming post-baby. I am so there.
I loved it too. It was absolutely the couple of hours a week that I would take for myself to just take a break.
We have a woman who comes, I won't say her name so I can tell you the story, but she has 5 children. And she tells me the other day that one of the things that happens at their house is the 5 kids, and they kind of at the age where it's like, taller, shorter. And they'll like, stand there in front of her and they'll be like, Mom, we have something we want to talk to you about. And she'll be like, yes. And they'll be like, you have to go to Shape House. Like somehow there is a point in her life where she probably loses it a little bit, and the kids are sending her to because they know.
We'll just go tandem when we have the baby, because that's the perfect amount of time. The baby doesn't need to feed in 55 minutes.
Exactly.
Like, it's fine.
Go in, sweat.
Round trip, hour and a half, perfect.
Yeah. Love it.
There's so many amazing. I sent my dad to Shape House. I sent him a few months ago, and he was beside himself. He has back pain. He suffered from just decades of back pain.
The heat.
Yeah.
The heat in addition to the sweating.
It's just
all of it.
Yeah. It's good. So, and by the way, as we do this, we'll have a link. You'll tell us what other links we should have. We'll definitely have a link to Shape House in general.
Absolutely.
You can find one near you. Maybe when you're traveling to New York.
We can give you a code so your people can have a good discount. Cool. We can do lots of things.
Awesome. Yeah. Look, for everybody who's listening right now who hasn't literally taken an hour for themselves in weeks, if not months, and would like to, for me, what I love about it is I get to excuse in my head, like, oh, I'm actually kind of working out and detoxing. Yeah. So I'm not taking a break, because if anybody listening right now is as crazy as I am in my head, taking a break feels indulgent. Mm-hmm. This is the perfect mix to me.
I love to indulge.
I know.
You two are perfect. You two are perfect.
We're the perfect match. I just love it.
Theoretically, I love to indulge, but you know me.
No, but he doesn't fully. We will be on the beach, Sophie. We will be on the beach, and he's pacing.
Wow.
He's pacing, and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you looking for? He's like, nothing. I just can't sit still.
I need a book or something.
Sit your ass in the sand.
I need to be doing. And again, doing can be something enjoyable, right? Like I love reading fiction.
Right.
But I need to be doing.
It's a doing thing.
I can't just lay there. Sophie goes crazy because
that's an interesting segue for me. Are we done? I mean, is this? No, we good? I love the notion that certainly with food and certainly with what you just said, it's like the point is get to know yourself.
Yeah.
I think certainly we're scared of what we don't know, right? That's one of the biggest things that scares us.
Yep.
Meanwhile, we don't know ourselves. So at the end of the day, those who don't explore who they are scared of themselves, literally. They walk around with this fear that if they feel their feelings, it's going to kill them. If they switch their really bad habits, they're never going to be able to survive or any of those things.
I just did this webinar, and the first thing I was like, honest exploration. First thing is just get real with who you are and how you got here. No, don't be scared of what you're going to find out. You already know all this shit already anyway. You've just been hiding from it for a while. Like, do a really deep exploration of who am I and how did I get here. And once you get there are solutions. But if you hide and if you don't, then it's going to be in the corner over there, and it's going to be that thing that pisses you off every time somebody says something, or you talked about compliments before and not feeling good about yourself. I remember a time. It still happens, it happens 5% of what it used to. I remember a time when if somebody would give me a compliment, I would feel shitty.
Yeah.
That would be the response.
It didn't match your experience of yourself, probably.
It didn't match my experience of myself. B, the only rationalization, and this sounds so insane to say now, was that they were lying.
Yeah.
Because I believed that I was this, that, and the other thing. And so somebody telling me, you look good, or, oh, that was really funny, or whatever, it didn't matter. Whatever the compliment was, in my head, it went like, yeah, whatever.
Did you do the thing where you were wondering if you were a fraud? Like something along the lines of like, if you really knew me, you wouldn't say that?
Absolutely.
Did you have that at all? Because I really grew up with that one.
And I grew up for years as the person I thought other people needed me to be to pretend, which it felt fake and it felt...
So much work.
It's fucking terrible.
It's so much work.
And for me, it led me to, again, like my life was drugs because I couldn't be cognizant.
That was like probably your moment of like not owing anything to anyone.
Couldn't be conscious, right? Like it was, I needed to numb out at all times. And now it's not like, if anybody's listening, it's not like I feel perfect about myself all the time. I'm just real and honest about the good, the bad, and the things I want to change. And it's all good. Like, let's just do the work.
But you're in touch with it too. It's different. Right. You're not escaping it or trying to numb out. You actually
you're
are
in denial
in touch
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you surround yourself with people who call you on it. Like if you're off or you're not being in your integrity, I'll call you on it, and vice versa. You'll do that for me. And that's the beauty of being in dynamic relationships.
And I'll say, right. So like, hey, I'm speaking about it here, but like yesterday when I was feeling off, I was telling you that I'm feeling off instead of trying to pretend like I'm feeling okay, which would have made the thing in my head go crazy.
Absolutely.
So
you even admitted like this is when I would have like done something stupid.
Absolutely, when I would have used or acted out in the past. Like just I was feeling shitty. I need something to make this go away. Yeah. My acting out yesterday was going upstairs and reading a book.
Yeah.
It's like my 2 crackers. It's good.
Yeah.
it's good.
It's good.
Okay, so not only are we not done yet, but we have 5 questions we got to ask you because we ask everybody.
Right. I'm ready.
And so the first one is, what is the best advice that you have ever received?
Oh, wow. The best advice is actually pretty recent. And it was from a friend of mine who was noticing that I would get myself depleted. Like because I like to do, and I'm good at what I do, and I could do so much more. And so I do. And then I'm really, truly depleted. And I would remember this experience of being completely like flat on my back, exhausted, and recover, but bring myself to depletion. And his advice was to stop hours before that, to just not let myself ever, like you don't wait, even if your car has like 2 more miles on that gas tank, you do not wait until you actually run out of gas. And I love that because I see myself sometimes at the time of a decision, should I go to this party? Should I do this thing? And be like, I think you're right in the red zone there. Like if you do go, you are going to be depleted. And I'm using it as a barometer, which is really... So
there's that piece again, knowing yourself.
Yes.
Knowing where that red line is. And then going...
And having really made a commitment to myself to not go that far.
Love it.
Yeah, and also just knowing within you where that balance is. So like... For me, I need a lot of self-care and a lot of indulgence and a lot of alone time to balance all the other things I do in my life. So my scale may be different than your scale.
Yeah.
Like, that's where it
But
comes.
as long as you know your scale.
Yeah. And know that it's in check and that it's balanced. What has been your proudest moment?
The birth of my daughter, without any question.
How old is she now?
She's 23.
Oh.
She's finishing college, actually.
Where is she?
At NYU in New York.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
oh,
she's
that's
almost
nice.
there.
Well, then you can visit every time you're there.
Why do you think
Perfection.
I opened stores in New York?
Duh.
Chicago is closer.
Yeah, but she's not there.
No, exactly.
What has been your hardest moment?
My hardest moment. Wow. Maybe my hardest moment. Oh, wow. My hardest moment is actually, there's a really hard moment in my life right now. I just turned 50 a few months ago, and for the life of me, can't seem to be in a healthy relationship. And I'm experiencing this really hard reality of just not thinking I'd be here at this moment. You asked.
Yeah. Well, especially after all this change, right? After all this
Work.
work.
Yeah, which I think is the good news too. It's like I don't no longer want to be in relationships that I'm not.
That's the thing. You're not. You have a very
no
small
longer-
pool of people
I
to
know.
pull from now because
know.
you're so in tune. And,
But I only need one.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just a little bit of the coming to terms with like why can I not seem to figure that out?
Yeah. Cool. So first of all, that's going to be a conversation we're going to have offline at some point.
Yes. Anytime.
But, I think Sophie said have a small pool. I think about it a little bit differently. And I think about it as, we all have our relationship patterns, the way we learned relationships are. And just like the self-work has had to happen, the relationship work is different. It's because it's about how do we go through everything we went through on our own to improve ourselves? I mean, I went through it with Sophie, right? Totally overcame drug use. Like I consider myself an ex-addict, not an active recovery. Like I'm an ex-addict. And then I meet the love of my life and I screw it up repeatedly. And what is it about that? Well, part of it was I'd never learned how to be that person in a relationship. And to be in a solid relationship, you're asking of that not only of yourself, but of one other person. And Sophie talked about a small pool. I think when we demand that, when we bring that into a relationship in an authentic way, people either stay or leave quickly because it's a big ask. And inevitably, what I've learned in my relationship with Sophie, and it's part of the main reasons why we started this podcast, is it's also ongoing work. So you're actually asking somebody like, hey, do some work, get
And then
with
do
me
some more.
and then keep doing
And then-
work with me,
exactly.
like until we die.
Yes.
And I look at it now as a beautiful thing. It's not a struggle because I get this relationship out of it.
Yeah. And also you get your relationship with yourself to be improved. Like the other one, Sophie's just a mirror for you. She brings what she brings, but the way it affects you is really yours.
Yeah.
And that I find really fascinating. Like I'm actually really good at that part. I'm really good at working out the relationship for some reason.
Yeah, we just need somebody else on the other side who's willing to do the same
Yes.
work. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that'll be a much longer conversation. And you already talked about how sweating is part of how you take care of yourself.
Yes.
I guess, or I'm guessing, that you have a whole ritual that makes sure that Sophie shows up at her best. What is your self-care ritual? How do you take care of yourself?
One of my favorite ones is this notion that I don't do substances that alter my state of consciousness.
Okay.
And so I don't do alcohol, I don't do drugs, I don't do sugar, I don't do caffeine. And those to me have become kind of the lighthouse a little bit. Like it guides me really clearly. And the reason I'm doing it is different than anything that's ever motivated me. This one is more about, I really want to know me. And if I do too much coffee, I have no idea. Like, are you tired? I don't know. I'm drinking coffee. People ask me literally, what do you do when you're tired if you don't do coffee?
Take it out.
I rest. So it's a very old-fashioned, So I'm really interested in sugar. For me is a complete and utter. It's a drug. It's on my birthday. again and again, people will say, why don't you have a little bit? It's just a little bit of sugar. And I'll respond, I do not do a little bit of heroin at all. It's just not something I want to do a little bit of at all.
Yeah.
And it is, that relationship has become, as we were talking earlier, like know yourself. And if when you eat sugar for the rest of the afternoon, you're zonked out and you're really aggressive and your skin is itching and your eyes are getting dry and you can't fall asleep, it's like, be honest. It's like, that is the sugar that's doing that to you. And so
that's something that some people want to do. Like they don't mind it. It's a sacrifice they're willing to take. And it comes back to knowing yourself.
Absolutely.
Like for me, full on recreational drug user. Full-on recreational sugar user.
Great.
Full-on recreational alcohol user. And that works for me.
Great.
Excessive, not good.
Great.
Too much sugar, I need to go on a cleanse. Too much anything, like, and that's for me, my gradient is here.
That's fantastic.
And it's so nice to know that about myself now, and that if I'm not allowed to have half a glass of wine for 3 months straight, I get a little bit like
not happy.
Wound up.
Yeah.
I get wound up. And I know that as long as I couple that with self-care and a bath and a this and a that and my techniques, I'm living in my authentic truth.
Yeah.
And owning that and being that, I mean, especially married to someone who's in the addiction world and, you know, he's helping people constantly find what that is. Is it that are you in AA because that's the only choice, or because you really want to never touch alcohol for the rest of your life again? And I think knowing that about yourself, I loved what you said about just like, you don't want anything that's going to throw you off and take you away from you. That's such a beautiful way of putting it. And for me, sometimes I need that to find myself, which is so interesting. Like sometimes I need to let go in order to
get the other door, be
like, oh, like I can laugh like that again. Oh yeah, and then I bring it into my right.
Yeah,
and it's
I think the beautiful thing of all this is it's also always dynamic. It can always change.
Absolutely,
it's the knowing of yourself that allows you to be in touch and say, oh, these things that I really served me before, I want to change them and I want to think about them and I want to test them. But once you have that self-awareness, you're a really good internal barometer, and I'm assuming you're like me and you have other people around you that are also really good barometers of how it's going for you.
Very much so.
And you can ask them flat out, like, is this, I made some
am
changes in the last week, so am I okay?
Have I acted off?
And they'll actually say, no, actually, you've kind of been fucked up for the last couple of weeks. Like, you need to adjust.
Beautiful.
You know?
But that's, being loved by someone and loving yourself, you can do that.
Your whole self.
Yes.
I love that.
All right, so this podcast is called Ignited. And we ask each one of our guests, what is it that ignites you? You already talked about it a little bit, but what is it that like puts you on fire?
I went to the wall in Jerusalem when I was 10 years old, and I wrote on a piece of paper that I wanted a horse and that I wanted peace in the world. And my father, who passed away a couple of years ago, really sweetly, as kind of our last conversation, said to me, do not forget, you got the horse. And I would argue that my life has been devoted. What ignites me is to contribute to, and peace could be many different things. It could even be I do something that somehow makes people a little bit better so that they get a little bit of a better life. And that's plenty.
Yeah.
But I would say that that's what ignites me, is
that's
just
awesome.
This idea that I ignite in others a desire for peace.
I love that.
I love
you
it.
definitely bring me peace.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank
you
you
for coming on this. Thank you for Shape House and for all the amazing work that you've done for that, because I know it can always seem easy when other people look at it from the outside, but I know the
entrepreneurs know what
I know the consistency that you bring to the Shape House experience.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so great, right? As you walk into one here and you walk into one in New York, and not only do things look the same, but they feel the same and they smell the same and they sound the same and the experience is similar.
And it's not that easy of a thing to do, believe it or not.
You've done it really well.
We've done it really well.
Yeah.
It's really a crew, a team that works with me that has taken that on.
That's awesome.
With me. Thank you both for
honored
having
to
me.
know you and honored to have you on this.
Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you, Sophie. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will have all those amazing links. And it sounds like we're getting a code for you guys for Shape House. So shh.
Sweating.
Love you all. We will see you next week. Bye. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.